kind of, in a way, an origin story about this industry because I've been making games for quite a number of years. And back in the early days, there was no internet, there was no wiki, and there was kind of no place where you could go to find everything you needed to know about how games are made and the behind the scenes stories. So it's part of the rationale for this book is to kind of tell those stories before they disappear. There's a generation today that grew up thinking games have always been here and will always be here. But there was a time when there were no video games, and how that changed is part of what this book is about. If you don't mind, I'm going to read a little bit from the introduction, which kind of gives you a sense of why this book is so important. It's called 1 Billion Hours. A billion hours ago, Neanderthals were making spearheads in the Stone Age. A billion hours from now, it will be the year 116,174 AD. With a billion hours to play with, you can make roughly 13,000 round trips to Alpha Centauri at the speed of light, or play back-to-back marathon of every Star Trek movie ever made for every person in New York twice. Or you could spend all that time playing Sid Meier Civilization. So I am told. 1 billion hours is the sort of number that is humbling to the point of incomprehensibility, and it is a wildly conservative estimate at that. The game distribution service Steam only began collecting player data in earnest within the last decade. And 1 billion is actually the number of hours played on Civilization 5, specifically from its release in 2010 up through 2016. In a 6-year window into one game in the series that, as of this printing, spans 29 years and 12 editions, not to mention the expansion packs. So 1 billion hours have been spent playing Civilization. So Jennifer and I had a really fun time writing this book, even though we never met each other. Actually, never even saw each other. This was all done pre-Zoom in the days of telephones.
All right, we were socially distancing before it was cool.
But I think it's amazing the way she's captured not only what I had to say, but a lot of the information, a lot of the history, a lot of the background, a lot of other things that were floating around at the time. In this game, some interesting background on the Gandhi meme, which is a kind of a story that's gone around the internet about why in the game of Civilization, Gandhi can be such a jerk. There are lots of theories about that, and it's a memorable moment for a lot of Civ players is meeting Gandhi for the first time, as well as the stories behind Railroad Tycoon, Pirates, Civilization, Gettysburg, Silent Service, F-15, lots of the games that if you didn't grow up with them, your parents might have grown up with them. Appreciate those of you who have sent in questions, and I'll be taking some time to sign some books and perhaps answer some of the questions that have been sent in. Again, thanks for joining us, and let's get to some questions.
Yeah, thank you for that fantastic intro, both of the book and of the live signing. I do have some questions coming in right now, and just so everybody knows, if you do want to submit a question, just go to premiercollectibles.com/memoir. You can pick up a signed copy of the book. You can ask the most obscure question that's always been burning in your mind about your favorite game, and we'll try to get to all of them. In the meantime, while those are kind of coming in, I want to ask a question that I just personally want to know. You, Sid, have been a creative person in kind of a number of different fields throughout your whole career. How did writing a book stack up for you? I mean, did you find some parallels in the process of publishing a book versus publishing a game, or was it just a bizarre experience that had you out of your comfort zone the whole time?
It's definitely a very new experience. I'm kind of used to the publicity part of it from the gaming world, and it's actually kind of nice to be able to do it from the comfort of my own Roman-themed living room. So that's a plus. I enjoyed the process. It really gave me an opportunity to kind of reminisce and think back about some incidents, some joys really that I might not have remembered had we not kind of dove pretty deeply into some of the backstories and the history of some of these games. Also reminded me of a lot of the great folks that I've worked with in 30 years or so. Two different companies. Some very pleasant memories kind of came back to me in the process of I was putting this book together, and yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for making that happen.
Well, thank you for having an interesting life, worthy of a book. You mentioned your living room. I'm curious, how are you doing with like all of the quarantine and everything? Are you able to work from home, or are you just? Like,
I am fortunate enough to be able to work from home. You know, it is. Some have said that this quarantine is kind of an introvert's paradise, and I can kind of relate to that a little bit. I'm able to work from home. I have. I'm learning how to cook. Learning some new skills. I'm working with my church. I'm making music videos, so I'm learning Logic and Final Cut, and just a lot of new things. You know, I realized I do nothing at all that I used to do, but I still have a totally full life. So at some point, I guess I'm gonna have to choose which one I prefer. But it has been, you know, a really interesting and eye-opening experience.
Yeah, if you're not careful, we're going to end up with a cooking game coming out of it. Keep it under control. That's actually one of the first questions that somebody's asking here. Aaron wants to know, what are your go-to hobbies for unwinding after a long day of game making?
After a long day, a long, hard day of game design, I enjoy reading. I've taken up reading again. I'm reading this series of novels by Patrick O'Brian about English ships in the 1800s, and I think there's 20 novels in the series, and I'm on number 7 or so. So I think it's going to keep me going for a while. Cooking, learning how to make videos, edit videos, create music, making sure I take a walk every day. Golf is kind of my one indulgence that I get out of the house and get some fresh air. But a lot of my time spent working on new games.
Yeah, we talk about that a little bit in the book about your golf obsession. Is it still under control, or is it kind of gotten a little?
It is under control. There was a time when I just needed that one more club to perfect my golf game, but I've moved on from that. And then there was the one more guitar phase where I just needed that one more guitar to perfect my music. But now I've kind of settled down. I think everything is good. I think life is perfect at this very moment.
Do you think you would say that those hobbies are good for your gaming inspiration, even if you're not necessarily making, for example, a cooking game? Does it benefit you to have these kind of outside influences, you think?
I definitely need some variety. I think that a lot of my ideas percolate overnight, and then when I'm taking my shower, they all pop into my head, and I quickly write them down when I get out. But they'll generally by noon or middle of the afternoon, I've got them all figured out, and my brain is empty, and I need to do something else to kind of stir the neurons again. So yeah, whether it's cooking or reading or playing some music, it's a way to make sure that I'm still enjoying. You know, I think I could over design and get tired of it, and that's a phenomenon that I want to avoid. There's a story in the book where after doing Civilization and kind of pouring my entire brain into that game, I had to kind of do something different, and I switched over and did CPU Bach, which is a totally different kind of game or experience or whatever it was. And that same idea that, once you've done something for so long, so intensely, you've got to do something different. Otherwise, your head is just going to explode.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have a question, a slightly obscure one from Alan. So on the subject of like branching storylines, right, where there actually is quite a lot of writing in some games. You have to write the text and the dialogue, not just for one scene, but for all the possible scenes. Do you have any special tools that you use to try to keep track of that? Or is it just like the most confusing Excel spreadsheet you've ever seen?
I am, for some reason, I'm able to keep an entire game a game and a half in my brain. So I will be, there's no design document, there is no spreadsheet, there's no PowerPoint. It is kind of a journey where there's a goal at the end. We know we want to make a great game about pirates, for example, or the history of civilization. But how we get there is kind of a day-to-day decision. At each fork in the road, we decide what we're going to do, and then we just realize, 2 forks later, we made a mistake. Back on that fork, we have to go. So it is. There's not a program that keeps track of what we're doing, or a design document. It's fun is elusive, and you gotta track it down. And there's no way to do that in my mind except for actually prototyping a game, playing it, and seeing if it's actually fun to play.
I find it's one of the interesting things about your career as a whole is that fans, honestly, they seem unable to really agree on what is your best game. I mean, some clearly kind of have some longer term sales more than others, but basically every game you've ever made has this kind of core dedicated fan base that really connects to that one above all the others. What do you make of that phenomenon, I guess?
Well, I was fortunate in not being pigeonholed or kind of forced by corporate overlords to stick with one particular kind of game or one. So being able to do an airplane game and a railroad game and a submarine game and a pirate game and a history of civilization game was an amazing amount of freedom. And I think because of that, those games will each appeal to perhaps a different audience. There's people who love railroads, and there's people who couldn't care less about railroads. There's people who love history, there's people who love science fiction. So the games are different enough, I believe, that they can be different people's favorite game, and they're all my favorite game. But I think that the fact that they've addressed a really diverse set of topics kind of allows you to pick and choose and find the one that you think is more what you're interested in.
And you think maybe there's something sort of some sort of key underlying trait that all of them have, so that the outer part just becomes kind of a matter of taste, where they all have that special something that makes them an interesting game.
I think each game, hopefully, in my mind, allows the player to create their own unique story, whether it's career as a pirate, or a great leader leading a civilization through history, or flying a mission on an airplane. I mean, that is a story that the player themselves create, is unique to them. Nobody will ever play the game in exactly the same way. And that kind of giving the agency to the player and the ownership of the experience to the player is really, I think, what is the common element among all of these games. And I think that also the idea of replayability, that once you've played a game, there were a number of things, places, directions, paths you could have taken, but you decided on a different path. But you kind of have planted that seed of coming back and trying that other path, and then trying another path. So the idea of this journey that the player owns, but also wants to explore all the different possibilities of, is, I think, kind of core to these games.
We have another question of, it's interesting, they seem to have a detail from the book. I'm not sure where they got it, unless they've already got the copy.
Speaking of the book,
oh yeah, you should be.
I should sign one of these books, one of these fabulous books.
Yeah.
And since I'm doing it with a powerful blue Sharpie,
you got it
authentic, I'll put a little paper underneath.
That's good thinking. You don't want any bleed through on those.
No.
So the question they have is about the band that you played in when you were in your 20s.
Oh my God.
The garage basement band.
Basement band.
And the band called Fragile. They just want to know that you're apparently a rock god.
I was, for a couple of years, I was a budding rock star. I was working at, actually I was working at General Instrument, and my friend there was a drummer in a band, and they lost their keyboard player, and they said, Sid, you play the keyboards, because we kind of played for fun in my basement with a couple friends from work. But then this band that Andy was in lost their keyboard player, and he asked me to join in, and uh, I didn't realize that you needed to be skilled to do this. So I knew a bunch of chords, and I remember specifically I had one sheet of paper kind of like this with the chords for like 40 different songs written on it, and I would just play along on my 80-pound Fender Rhodes piano, which the guys would help me carry, and this PA system that I found used somewhere. But it was not rock stardom as I had imagined it. We had to carry our own equipment. We had to pay for our own drinks. We had to play for folks that had better things to do than listen to. We played a number of weddings where we were asked to turn it down. And then we played, there's a phenomenon in Maryland called the Moose Club, which is a kind of a fraternal organization. And we were kind of a favorite of the Moose Lodges. So we would go to these various Moose Lodges and play. And it was totally fun, and we enjoyed it. And I mean, I love music, and I love making music, and being able to do it with friends was great. We never really hit it big, and I don't think that was really the goal. It was kind of to have something fun to do on a Friday or Saturday night, and get together with friends and play music.
Well, and you're very humble about your music ability, but actually you started the piano wasn't even your first instrument. You started on the violin at age 6.
That is
And,
true.
you know, you got multiple instruments in there that you can play.
My father especially was a multi-instrumentalist, and my parents encouraged me to play music first with the piano, and then when I went to in high school, they went in halves with me on a electric piano, and I kind of got. I remember when I was in grade school joining my first band, and the Beatles were big at the time, and I didn't. The only instrument I played was a violin, and as far as I knew, the Beatles did not have a violin in their group,
They should have.
which was a problem. But the other folks in the band didn't play much either, so I decided that I could pluck my violin, and it would be pretty close to like a guitar, lead guitar kind of thing. That band didn't go very far, but it was my first experience with with ignoring limitations.
Yeah, which is important. If you're going to be creating billion-hour games, you sort of have to ignore
You're going to create an entire industry from scratch.
Yeah.
You gotta ignore the limitations.
Right. There's no other way to do it. It was actually, though, it was kind of a slow transition into it. You didn't necessarily start out with this idea of, I will be an industry-changing game designer. You actually, I mean, some people, there's actual programs now for game development. People hop right out of college and are ready to start making AAA games. But you actually, by the nature of the industry at the time, you had sort of a relatively slow transition into even full-time game making.
I had I cautiously dipped my toe into game design and kept my day job as a computer systems person. But yeah, I got an Atari 800 computer when they first came out, and kind of combined two loves of mine. One was computers and programming, and the other was gaming. But there was no really outlet for computer games except for the arcades. There was Pac-Man and Space Invaders, but the home computer idea hadn't really, hadn't gaming was very small there. So it was more of a hobby, more of a fun thing to do. And when I hooked up with Bill Staley, who he and I founded MicroProse, and he had kind of the drive to launch us into the future. He quit his job to do this full time, but I did not. I kept my day job, and that night I was programming away. After a while, it kind of became clear that this might go somewhere, and I did quit my day job. But it was a cautious transition into game design.
Were your parents supportive, or did you just not tell them, or did they?
I was living in Maryland and they were in Michigan, so they had little influence over my day to day living and employment arrangements. But there was a time when I kind of brought my first game home to my parents, and I have this vivid memory of my mother playing. I showed this game to my mother, and she tried it out, and it was kind of a little shooter with these helicopter shooting missiles at the Ayatollah, who was like the bad guy of the moment,
That was the
and he
top of
would
the game, yeah.
and he would shoot some missiles back, and my mom would just freaking out, and it was too much excitement, too tense. She had to run into the kitchen and bake a pie or something, and I had my first realization that a few pixels on the screen can conjure up something pretty intense, and there might be a future to this whole industry.
Mm-hmm. So some people, I think, are newer fans of yours, since they're, gaming spans the ages all the way down to teenagers. Some of them, I think, may not be aware of just how far back and how thorough your career is. I saw someone asking online just before we jumped onto this, when are Tom Clancy and Sid Meier going to do a collaboration? And the answer, of course, is did, and it happened in 1988.
Yes, we wrote Red Storm Rising in the late 80s, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's part of the reason I think for this book is that there's a long history of gaming. It kind of stretches back into the mists of history, and it's I'd like to get that kind of down on paper, and so that people can kind of answer those questions. What were the early days of games like?
Well, and even then, I went back and counted. It was Tom Clancy's first video game was Red Storm Rising with you, but it was actually your 25th game. So you go back much farther even than that.
We would crank them out in those days.
Some of them are expansion packs today, but we're counting them as games.
It's very true. I mean, a game today typically is a 2 or 3 year effort with 50 to 75 people. Those early games took 6 to 9 months with 3 or 4 people. Not because we wanted to do less or didn't have as great ambitions, but it was kind of, we filled up the memory of the computer. We kind of done all we could do. So let's ship this thing and move on to something else.
Well, and that's sort of a new problem that you face nowadays is you do have almost unlimited ability to keep putting more and more and more into the game. Is it different to sort of think not what can we put in it, but what do we have to not put in it nowadays versus when you were younger?
That's very much the case. And a great example is Civilization, where the topic is so rich that we could cram so much stuff into that game. And we really have to address that. We've kind of looked into that situation and said, what are we going to, what are we going to do? How do we add new things without overwhelming the player? And we actually have a rule that whatever new feature goes in, something else has to come out. And it's a process of refinement. But there's also, how do we keep it Civilization and not just change it into something else? And we have the magic 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 rule, which is we keep 1/3 of the core, which is fundamental. We take 1/3 of the features and make them better, and then 1/3 of it is brand new stuff. So still Civilization, but it's going to evolve. It's going to change, and every time you get a new experience.
And every time you get feedback, whether you want it or not.
Feedback, yeah. The classic Civilization response, dear Sid, I loved your game Civilization. I had a great time playing. I couldn't stop. Here are the 5 things I think, however, you should change about it.
Right.
And by the way, I am available if you're hiring new game designers. I'm happy to relocate and help you fix your game.
Yeah, well, it inspires a sense of ownership you talked about a lot. It's, because they are making the story, they feel like the game belongs to them in as much as the story belongs to them.
Yeah, and with the modding features, et cetera, players can actually become game designers and make their own scenarios and change the game, in the way that they would like. So it's the community has been the lifeblood of Civilization. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be making the game except for the community that has supported it enthusiastically with their play, with their ideas, their contributions, their scenarios, their mods, etc. So um, here's thanks to them, and that's why we're here today.
So I suppose you take an overall positive view of modding, even some of the ones that are maybe a little more out there, because there are some.
More power to you modders out there. We can't think of everything. Thank you.
Somebody's got to put Santa Claus in Civilization. Might as well be a modder.
Sure. How could I miss that? I'm sorry.
We'll get it in the next expansion pack.
Right.
I have a list here of some of the more unusual accolades you've gotten. Obviously, you've gotten very many best game of the year, best strategy games, etc. But there's also been some strange ones. You had F-19 Stealth Fighter was included in the Smithsonian Institution as a museum exhibit. It was part of a whole thing. Do you remember that, what that was like?
Yes, they asked us to put together a flight simulator demo, and taking off, flying a little bit, and then landing. And we had just released F-19. We had the technology, to do that. So we put it into kind of an arcade-style case. Created a very forgiving, easy to fly version that was just about taking off, flying a little bit, and landing. There was nothing got blown up. There was no violence. It was all about flying, and that was in the Air and Space Museum. I remember they had a nice reception when they opened it, and my sister, who had just recently at the time gotten an internship at the Smithsonian. I got to invite her, and she got to meet all, the super big wigs and impress them with her skills. So it was not only a cool gaming event, but it was a cool family event.
Yeah. Well, and then there was also a magazine called Computer Gaming World hosted a poetry contest where they invited readers to write poems, haikus or limericks or whatever they wanted about their favorite games in general, but the vast majority at that time in the early 90s ended up being about you and your game specifically. I don't know how you feel about having your work immortalized in haiku form, but people were ready for it.
There's no bad publicity.
Is it weird, I guess, to have something that you sort of created with one thing in mind put out there and turned into something completely different? Because I mean, obviously you're supportive of that idea, great, be creative, make your own thing, but is it strange to you to look at something that you made, sort of envisioning it one way and seeing something just completely different being made of it?
That's gratifying. I think that our goal is to provide some tools for you to create whatever you want. That's why I admire Minecraft so much. But our goals were with Civ to give you a map and some units and the ability to found cities and the ability to do a few things, but then create your own story with those tools. So if you take it off in an unexpected direction or an original direction, that's kind of what we were hoping when we put it together. Now, there's some creativity is pretty amazing, but in general, we were not trying to constrain you to a specific path, but give you some robust tools to explore all sorts of different possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a couple of stories we have in the book about people who sort of took that to extremes. There was a young man who ran a game of Civilization 1 or 2, I can't remember, for I think 12 years. And he just kept running it, and it kept going and kept going. And
apparently it was not a pretty sight.
No.
But we make no claims that this is an accurate portent of what the future of the Earth looks like.
Right. That was what a lot of people were saying was, it's proven humanity is doomed. We're all going to end up like 1984. And
it's fun to read things into games, and it's great. But we make no claims of future historical accuracy.
There's also been some mods where they tried to put in just as much as the technology could possibly handle. They did there was somebody making a battle royale mod where they had like 70 or 80 different civilizations all on a massive map battling each other at once. But the computing power has been a problem for them. So hopefully that'll catch up at some point.
Yeah, I wonder how long one turn would take in that game. But it's, you know, it's the creativity of our players. You know, there's the inner game designer in just about every gamer, and so looking for ways to kind of take the way it's supposed to work and stretch it and see what you can, you know, how creative you can be with it, I think is gratifying. We actually have recently released a battle royale scenario for Civilization. But yeah, hearing about people creating maps with every civ we've ever released in their historical place in the world, and then turning things loose. You know, it's kind of fun to hear about those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another interesting award that you guys got in 2005, Civilization 4 was the first video game ever to win a Grammy. And I was thinking about this. This means that you are 25% of the way to your EGOT, Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony, which not that much have. I think you should go for it. But hear me out. So G4 TV is coming back next year, which means an Emmy is on the table.
All right.
And I think anybody who reads this book would agree that a movie adaptation of your life would definitely be Oscar worthy. So my question is, in order to secure your Tony, which of your games would be best adapted to a Broadway musical?
I'd love to see Pirates as a musical. I think CPU Box is a little too obvious, but
colonization's been done. That's what Lin-Manuel Miranda's got that one. You know?
Yep. I could see CPU Bach actually, like him creating new music. You know, him. I think he had like 12 children or something, so there'd be a lot of domestic drama.
Yeah, you could put in a little side plots.
The wigs, you know, deciding what wig to wear in the morning, and then writing. He wrote a complete cantata like every week, so he could be a very interesting character. I could see that as a musical.
I think the other possibility that I think has never been done before, at least, would be Sim Golf. We've never had a golf-based musical. I mean, I feel like the world's ready.
And we never will. I could be wrong. But all right, 25% of my EGOT. All right.
That's right. You're 25% of the way. That's not bad. You should, you know.
Gives me a new goal. Yes.
I feel like we can get you all the way there. We'll have you singing on Broadway. There have actually.
I've been asked who should play me in the movie of my life.
That's a good question.
And I'm voting for Albert Brooks.
I can see that.
It's one of my favorite actors. I think he gets me. You know, I think
he understands what's deep inside.
Yeah, he understands. He's, you know, things don't always go right for him, but he finds the needle in the haystack, or the pony in the pot, whatever it is. He's able to make the best of every situation.
Right, he's persistent. That's what
he can make it through the valley of despair. That's
right.
That's his skill.
That's right. We talk a little bit about the valley of despair and this idea of, like, people imagine perhaps that, you know, this amazing, successful game designer, you just walk in and just things flow from your brain and hit right into the computer. But actually, there's plenty of days where it's not so fun. And
the valley of despair is almost a given in any project, that you're going to run into this time period where things are not working, and it doesn't look like it's going to turn out well. And usually it does, but it's a phenomenon. You know, we kind of, again, we have to analyze everything because we're programmers. At the beginning, you have high hopes and dreams, and you've only spent, you know, a month or 2 or 3, so anything is possible. But then it gets to the point later on where you look and say, I've already spent like a year and a half on this, and it's still not working. You know, your expectation of how long you should be, you know, kind of kicks in, and you got to kind of power through those couple of weeks or months, and then, you know, the sun starts shining and things are good again. But
Right.
it's almost a given on any project that there's going to be this valley of despair at some point.
It's a form of self-torture. That's how you gotta.
Well, it's it's kind of we dream. We really, when you make a game, it's an act of faith that this vision that you have of the fun that is going to be created will come to fruition. So if that's frustrated at a certain point and it's not as fun as you were hoping it would be, or you're for some reason it looks like you're not going to get there, despair follows quickly.
We have a follow-up question. They want to know, all right, you're played by Albert Brooks. Who's going to play Wild Bill?
I don't think anybody but Wild Bill
That's right.
could play Wild Bill. I think he's a unique individual, and he should play himself. I think he'd enjoy that.
Mm-hmm. They also note they're asking about, you have a very large fan base in Canada, and Canada has only recently been added into the Civilization repertoire. Did you want to add Canada earlier, or was it just not an option because there weren't enough not enough memory for enough civilizations?
Well, I was actually born in Canada, in Sarnia, Ontario. I think Canadians are so humble and shy that they just did not make themselves known. Whenever we would ask a Canadian, would you like to be in Civilization? They'd say, maybe, but you don't have. I mean, it's okay. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. So finally, we started running out of civilizations. But all right, Canada, it's your time. It's your time to shine.
Well, and you always have to have some that are not so militarily aggressive, scientifically aggressive or diplomatically aggressive. It takes all time.
or not aggressive in any possible way. Yes.
Please come and.
Yes.
You can say that you were born in Canada. But yeah, they all agree, by the way, that Wild Bill should be playing himself. That's
Well, in the early days, I mean, there's a story about how we would do anything for publicity. So a local TV station decided they were going to come and visit MicroProse and see what was going on here. And so we had planning sessions, and Bill be wearing his National Guard flight suit, and we would have to say yes sir and no sir, and kind of this whole military vibe. So it was kind of a way that his personality is powerful, and that really came through in the little piece on the local network.
Yeah. Well, and he actually was a real pilot. He could fly, and you flew in a plane.
He could fly. Yes, he was amazing. He could fly.
That's right, like Superman. Just
right. He was in the Air Force and in the Air National Guard, and he flew real airplanes, and he invited me to fly. I did once, and that was enough for me. So, but he was a great resource in terms of flying and military stuff. And so that was really a story of our partnership, is that we worked very well together, whether it was the business part and the creative part, or the military and the gaming part, or in whatever way we worked very well together in the MicroProse days.
Mm-hmm. And you guys actually owned a plane for a little while, like it was your own Miss MicroProse airplane.
Miss MicroProse, yeah, that was a plane that MicroProse owned, and it was used to thrill various journalists when they would come to visit, and a lot of MicroProse folks I think flew in it. I did not, because I'd flown with Bill once before and thoroughly enjoyed the experience, but it was good. It was enough.
Okay. You had your time. We have a question from Ethan. Do you recall working with Silas Warner at MicroProse?
Definitely. Silas worked for a number of years with us at MicroProse. He started his maybe his first game, or the first one I was aware of, was Castle Wolfenstein, and it was also done for I think it might have been Avalon Hill, but it was a Baltimore company. And I guess at a certain point he came. It was just a small industry at the time. He came to interview with us and join us, and worked on a number of games in the Atari, Commodore, and then the Atari. Forget the name of the computer they brought out after that, but for a number of years he worked at MicroProse. He was a very intense gamer, good programmer. The irony, of course, is that he created Castle Wolfenstein, which became this huge phenomenon later on, with Doom, and the whole shooter genre kind of originated there. But I've felt blessed that I've always been kind of able to work at a stable company, and realizing that this industry is very volatile and companies kind of come and go, and that I've been fortunate to find the best partners to work with in companies that appreciate what we do and have that stability. For Silas, unfortunately, the company that he was working with did not survive, and he found himself going from one company to another.
Yeah, there's something that was impressive to me as I was interviewing you: the number of other developers and other artists and other coders and every element of the industry that you can imagine that you remember off the top of your head, and are so gracious to every single one, and what each one of them contributed. That was just, there's not really a question in that. I'm just saying, amazing, good job.
Yeah, it was, in the earlier days, it was a very small insular industry, and we would get together in the Game Developer Conference. The first one in California, I think there were 50 game designers. And they weren't even all game designers. Some wanted to be game designers. And the cookies were free. I remember that. So we did kind of know each other and appreciate each other, borrow ideas from each other, and we were all basically trying to build this industry and figure out what it was and what players enjoyed. So yeah, I did have the good fortune to know and meet a lot of the great designers of the early days.
Well, like you said, it was 50 people back then. Now it's, I think, something like 80,000. I don't even know how many people go to GDC anymore.
Scary. It's a scary thing.
Yeah. Used to be just a couple guys in a hotel room,
right?
Cookies and talking about the games they like. There's actually a whole series of questions that I'm going to kind of lump into one, of people asking, when is blank game going to be re-released? And
sorry, we're getting some glare here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Susan's on top of it.
When is Gettysburg going to get re-released? When is Railroad Tycoon going to get released? And I know you can't answer any of those questions. I just want to let you.
Thank you, people, for remembering our games. It's great. Thank you. There's good old games. There are places where you can relive the glories of the good old days. Today, just as we probably understand, the investment in making a new game is pretty intense. And we've got a couple that we really believe in. So that's what we're focusing on. But thank you for remembering some of our classics, and there are ways to resuscitate them and play them again.
Do you feel like the sort of explosion in mobile gaming has left sort of an opportunity to fill that small indie niche again, where you have these AAA titles that really just have to be massive by their nature, but then there's also sort of this resurgence in small games that can be developed by 3 or 4 people in 8 or 9 months? Is that something that interests you still, or does it feel like it's just a totally different experience?
I think that's part of the energy of this industry, is the vast variety of games that are being made, genres, scope, size, there's just so many opportunities to make games because our audience has expanded so much. There are people who are looking for games to play when they have 3 minutes, to spare, and there are people that are looking to spend 40 hours with a game like Civilization. So as the audience has grown, the opportunities for different kinds of games has grown, and we're certainly seeing a lot of resurgence in the indie arena, mobile games, early access games, uh, console, computer, mobile, just
And all of the above.
all sorts of. It's hard to it's hard to keep up with all the games that are out there.
Well, and they come with unique challenges as well. With AAA titles, you never really have to consider how do we charge people for this. There's a really established model for that. Whereas with mobile, there's micropayments. There's it's a completely different experience, which I think sometimes affects how you have to design the games.
Yeah, it's you're considering attention span, you're considering revenue model, you're considering just visibility. It's really that with so many games out there, visibility is a major issue. So beyond the game design, there's these other issues that come into play.
Do you feel like your career would have taken a different path if there had been something like the Steam Workshop or the Apple iTunes Store, where you could make just your game and put it out there immediately without needing a distributor like you did in the early days?
Well, in the early days, we were kind of in that situation where we would make a game and distribute it, and kind of not. We were our own bosses basically, and today we're a development studio basically, but working within a publishing, with a publisher. I think that the question that comes to me is, could I have made Civilization today? And to me, the answer is no. That it just not the kind of game that could break through and develop the kind of traction that this game developed in the early days. I think there was kind of a coming together of, like, the IBM PC had just come out, which was a more serious computer, and it had more memory, and it could kind of do more of the stuff that Civilization needed. And it also broke the mold of the types of games that were out there already. The idea of building, was kind of pioneered by SimCity, but the world was ready for this new kind of strategy game. Today we've got tons of strategy games, and not everyone has the time to invest in a game like Civ. So it's hard to say, but it would be a different world to bring out Civilization today than it was in 1991 when it originally came out.
Well, and possibly it might look like one of the other iterations of Civ that you have eventually been able to make, like Civilization Revolution was much more self-contained, much more, meant for a specific audience. That might have just been the first Civilization if the other ones couldn't.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's possible that there would. This is going to sound grandiose. That there would be no 4X genre without Civ. I think it would be hard to bring that genre. I know a lot of people are going to write me angry letters.
I think it's totally fair.
But it's the kind of genre that requires you to believe that the fun is just over the horizon. And it's hard to kind of present a game like that today.
Right. Well, it takes a massive hit to prove to people that they like it, and to prove to distributors that, yes, people will buy this type of game. I mean, I think there's even today a stereotype about gamers, this idea that, they're sitting in their mom's basement eating Cheetos. People who haven't grown up with games necessarily don't realize it's a fully mature industry. Adults are playing these. We actually had very early on, when we were finding the right editor and the right publishing house, I had an editor say to me about this book, we know gamers buy games, but we don't think gamers buy books. And I utterly baffled by the statement. I was like, you don't know gamers. You don't know anything about gamers, which was fair because it said, okay, well, then this is not your topic. This isn't the right place for you. And once we found the right editors, a whole different ball game. But
Yeah.
there is still, I think, that fear, I think, of investors saying, I don't know if we want to put this much money into a 4-year game if strategy is a dirty word. And I think Civilization is the game that proved it didn't have to be, that you really could make a game like this.
Yeah, it made the world safe for strategy. And shortly after that, we saw, not only turn-based strategy, but real-time strategy and card game strategy. And
Right.
strategy became kind of a stamp of approval on games, and that was very gratifying. You mentioned how gamers used to be kind of a very small clique of geeks and nerds, and kind of, you're wasting, are you wasting your time playing those games?
Right.
And that has really changed to where games are played universally, and that was really brought home to me in our Phyrexicon that we had a year or two back, where I was kind of sitting at this table signing some posters with a bunch of our designers, and I'd see these parent-child coming, up to get this posters signed, and here was a parent introducing their son or daughter to the world of gaming. It's like, I think you're ready for Civilization now.
That's right.
I've been holding back, but you might be ready for this game now. And, kind of relaying their experiences with the game growing up, et cetera. So it definitely has grown in ways that we really could not have imagined.
Yeah, that's definitely, it's something that we have in our household, is a family activity is game night. We don't really watch a lot of TV or movies together because we can't agree on it, but we can agree on certain games. So
Great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Let's see, we got, they're talking about Gang of Gamers releasing old, very old stuff that's like, I forget what abandonware. Just very, very old stuff where the publishers are gone, the formats are gone, and everything's run by emulators. I'm assuming you're in favor of that as much as mods.
Yes, that's like my life support system out there. It's like my games still have life, because whereas a book, we have Shakespeare's folio still around.
Right.
But many of the games that were done in the 80s and 90s, it's very difficult to find a way to play them. They're the computers are not around anymore. The just things have moved so fast. I think it's an artifact of how quickly things move. But we recently dug out of our basement the original computer that was used to create Civilization. There was actually two, one that I used in the first half part, and one that was we finished it on, and we tried to boot up one of them, and flames actually came out of the fan of the one. I think there was a lot of dust in there or whatever, and we put that one aside.
Right.
I booted up the other one, and it booted, but the CMOS was gone. It had no boot memory, so we had to find one on a floppy. And now that it's running, we can't turn it off because we have to go through this very complicated process to get it running again. So it's been running in my office for like a year or so. But all the source code for Civ is on there, which I think is a historical document.
Yeah.
We have to find a printer with a parallel. There's some complications to get it actually off of there. But it's a project we want to take on, and we could finally once and for all resolve the Gandhi
prove it. Yeah.
mystery of Gandhi and his -1. If we dug that source code off, I was joking that with someone that maybe my next book should be like the annotated source code for Civilization, kind of like a Rosetta Stone of computer game design.
little bubbles like VH1's behind the music.
That would be fun too. Yeah.
Fun factoids about them. Yeah, well, and that's one of the, I guess, groundbreaking, blowing people's minds chapter in the book is this nuclear Gandhi story where everybody is really convinced that this thing happened, and it truly didn't happen.
Right.
But it's become internet lore, and that's people just they insist it must be true.
Now we can prove it with the actual source code.
Bring out the source code. Say, I dare you to find any unsigned characters in there. There are none. Oh, we've got a whole bunch of jumping up here at the last second. People are realizing, oh no, we're almost out of time. Let's get it going. Is there anything you've worked on in the past that lost something that a chopping block that still bugs you to this day? I'm gonna stand up real quick while you answer that.
Ooh. Well, one of the classics I think is the Dinosaur Game. Have I done something? I started. Live TV, folks. Certainly the Dinosaur Game, which I tried a number of times to figure out how to actually bring to glorious life, and as a real-time strategy game, as a turn-based game, as a card game. That's one of the kind of ones that got away in my gaming career. There are, for every game that I've released, there's probably two other prototypes that kind of got to a certain point and for one reason or another never made it. There was a very early version of Gettysburg, probably 4 or 5 years before, that the technology really couldn't accommodate. A couple of science fiction games that didn't make it. There's a Battle of Waterloo game that didn't quite cross the finish line. Various games that were learning experience is the way I look at them, and part of the process of getting to where we are today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, this book I think was certainly a learning experience. We're very nearly out of time. I guess I'm going to put one more question in there. Have you ever won a game of Civilization on the deity level, or is that that's for other people?
No. There's a real irony there that I gave a talk at the GDC after Civ 1 came out, where I very firmly stated that a game never needed more than 4 difficulty levels. That there should be one for introducing the player to the game, one when they got a little better, one that was fair, and then one that was very difficult, challenged them. People immediately beat the hardest difficulty level, so we started adding more and more. Up to at some point we had 9 different difficulty levels. Just a testament to how intensely people are willing to study and play this game and analyze it in ways that just boggles my mind.
Mm-hmm. But that's not for you. You stay on.
I mean, how embarrassing would it be for me to try to play the deity level and lose? I don't even try.
We should just assume you could then.
Yeah, that would be an assumption I would appreciate.
That's right. Knowing all the algorithms, I imagine you actually would know behind the scenes strategies of how to loophole your way in there. But
to a certain extent, although when I find them, I take them out, because if I found them, I know somebody else is going to find them, and they'll kind of reduce the fun of the game. So we got to find them and get rid of them.
Well, all of those books that you see stacked next to Sid are getting signed, and they could be yours in your hands if you want to go order one at livesigning.com/memoir. You can order one directly from there, and they'll get shipped to you, and you'll have a copy of history in your own hands with Sid's actual marker on it, and no bleed through.
Excellent.
So yeah, we encourage everybody to go out and get one, and thank you very much, Sid, for agreeing to do this live conversation with everybody. Thanks to all of our watchers for all of your amazing questions. We really appreciate it, and we hope everybody enjoys the book and manages to beat the whole book on deity. But we thank you very much.
Hi.
I am sitting here with the one and only Jackie Chan, global superstar, and he is signing all of these books. Are your hands tired?
No, tired, but I'm happy.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm
really,
so
really
happy
happy.
to hear that.
How do you feel?
Good. I'm excited. This is the first time I've done something like this before, a live signing.
Where do I want to go that I've never been? Oh, we're thinking about, not thinking, we're putting it in motion. I'm going to go to Indonesia on my irresponsible tour this year. I'm excited about that. I've never been. And there's been a heavy demand for me there. So we're going to go. We're going to go to Indonesia and I'm going to make people laugh in Indonesia. That's how I roll. How do you roll? I can't make this up. Wayne, you got your Indonesia pants? I decided it about a good 3 weeks ago. You'll see it on the schedule soon, so I suggest you go get your pants.